And Nigel Farage has confirmed he is open to a deal with Rupert Lowe and restore Britain after Reform leader vowed to build a broad coalition to unite the right.
Well, Restore Britain and their leader, Rupert Lowe, said the two parties should work together, but is reportedly only willing to agree to a pact if Nigel Farage backs 5 key policies, including no cabinet permissions for former Conservatives who held office and a referendum on the death penalty.
Yes, indeed. In the last hour, Nigel Farage said he has reached out to Rupert Lowe to have a conversation and is waiting to hear back.
You know, you could see a situation where Restore, without the hope of winning anything outside Great Yarmouth, I mean, literally without a hope of winning a single seat in the country, could do us great harm. And I think online...
Well, there you go. This is GB News Originals. I'm Emily Carver. Please do give this video a like and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. And do leave a comment. Let me know what you think.
You will see a lot of Restore potential voters now beginning to worry about the impact that might have. So look, I'll finalise that by saying if it was the offer of a deal, it came in a very unusual way. I have responded to it potentially, you know, with an open mind, as I would, but I'm certainly not going to be ditching people that I view to be allies and a great asset.
Well, in a twist to the tale, on Twitter, Rupert Lowe has claimed that Nigel Farage has not in fact reached out to him and instead said we'll call later.
OK, joining us now is co-founder of JL Partners, Tom Lubbock. Tom Lubbock, thank you for joining us. Unite the right, I mean, will it happen? Will it work? And how long will they stay united?
Afternoon, Dawn. Look, I think the key thing is that if the right bloc in British politics is divided going into the next election, that makes the job of a left-wing coalition much, much easier. It's absolutely vital that some sort of united front happens on the right. Now, what that looks like, I don't know. I don't know if it's more important to unite Conservative and Reform or what part Restore play in that. But I can tell you that we've seen this before in elections. When the right is divided, it gets beaten at elections.
I don't know what JL Partners has the current trends on, but it looks like Reform is around 25, the Tories are around 20, and Restore is around 4 or 5. Is there a real risk to Reform? Because Reform was at 30% before Restore came along, and now there's been a significant dip in Reform. Do you think that that's attributable to Restore?
Yeah, it's a tailing off of the Reform vote from a very, very high point. Look, I think they're still competitive with Labour. They're still vying for first place, which is incredible considering the journey they've been on. And the bigger danger is that we think of things, we look at the state of the race now, we look at where things are now, rather than thinking ahead to an actual campaign where, as you just heard Nigel in your montage there, Nigel Farage say, well, it's going to be a choice between him or Andy Burnham. And look, I think that will really clarify minds, and that's a very strong argument and gives Reform a lot of upside. So still plenty of upside there for Reform.
OK, Tom, thank you so much for joining us. That's co-founder of JL Partners, Tom Lubbock there.
Yeah, they've also got to contend with incumbency, which is another hurdle. I'm going from just 5 seats won at the last general election to 326 would be unprecedented. But, you know, we do live in unprecedented times.
The old house stood at the edge of the moor, its windows dark, save for a single candle flickering on the 3rd floor. No one had lived there for years, or so the village believed. But as Elias crept closer, the heavy wooden door creaked open, groaning against its rusted hinges. A cold draught swept past him, carrying the faint scent of old parchment. At the centre of this storm are 2 prominent figures whose uneasy history is now threatening to alter the entire electoral map. Nigel Farage, the leader of Reform UK, and Rupert Lowe, the Member of Parliament for Great Yarmouth and head of the emerging Restore Britain movement. What began as internal party tension has erupted into a public, high-stakes standoff over whether the right can form a unified front before the next general election. To understand how Westminster arrived at this critical juncture, one must look at the recent electoral dynamics that forced both men back into the same room, at least metaphorically. The immediate catalyst was the Greater Manchester mayoral by-election, where Restore Britain delivered a surprisingly strong performance, securing 8.7% of the vote and finishing ahead of both the Conservative Party and the Liberal Democrats. For a relatively new political enterprise, that result sent shockwaves through the political establishment. More importantly, it sent a clear message to Reform UK, which finished second behind Labour. The right-wing vote is becoming fragmented. Recognising the potential arithmetic danger of a divided base, Rupert Lowe released a 12-minute video addressed directly to his former colleague.
Well, surprise move this morning, wasn't it? Because Restore Britain's Rupert Lowe offered Reform UK an olive branch, or what some people would call an olive branch, to work together to build a future patriotic government.
That is why today I'm reaching out to put personalities and our past disagreements aside for the good of the country.
Well, Mr Lowe said he would only agree to a pact if Nigel Farage agreed to 5 policies, including mass deportations, a ban on the burqa and a referendum on the death penalty. He also said that future, I think, current Tory party ministers or former ministers would not be allowed to serve in a future government. Reform's Andrew Rosendale spoke to GB News earlier today.
Rupert was elected as a Reform UK MP under Nigel's leadership, so clearly there's common ground on lots of issues.
Well, Nigel Farage has responded tonight. He said this: "To deliver change, I understand Reform UK will need the support of people from other parties, as well as millions who have never voted before. That is a broad coalition I am building." So, should Reform be more open to uniting the right and accepting, perhaps, Restore's offer? Well, I'm now joined by commentator and YouTube sensation Bruce Unfiltered, and another sensation, political commentator Lee Harris. Good evening, gentlemen. It's a pleasure to have you both on at the same time. Look, Bruce, I'll start with you. What do you think of this offer from Rupert Lowe to Nigel Farage, or from Restore Britain to Reform UK?
I think Alex, I made my points very clear on social media earlier today that it felt to me a little bit like very closely after the Manchester election, they probably didn't perform quite as well as they wanted to, picking up, 46,000 votes out of a potential 2.1 million, which is another conversation for another day because the vote count or the people that turned out was terrible. But I do think after Makerfield, after the Manchester by-election and possibly other elections that have taken place, they've kind of realised that they're not the political force social media made them to be, and that they might be struggling and they need to form some sort of coalition to effectively what Lowe said today, unite the right, which they didn't seem too interested in for the past sort of 6 to 8 months. So I did find it a little bit odd today, to be perfectly honest. And it seemed like a list of demands more than we need to unite under one banner.
Yeah, so you're a little bit suspicious of it, if I'm right in saying that, Bruce. Now, Lee, you think there's a good chance that we can unite the right. Do you think that there should be some negotiation between the two parties?
Well, I think, to start with, I think what Rupert did today was actually quite a good move. You're absolutely right to be suspicious of it. I don't disagree with anything that Bruce has just said. But I think what's happened is what we've seen is we're having a slightly different conversation that we had 24 hours ago. And what I've seen in comments on X and people responding to Nigel's response is all of a sudden we've got Restore voters talking about doing a deal or working with Reform to unite the right, and that has changed the tone of the debate. Now, it doesn't really matter to me what Rupert's intentions were, and I'm perfectly sure there's some clever politics behind it in his mind as well, but I also think it shows a little bit of weakness to Rupert Lowe as well. But what he's doing, I think, is he's changed the debate, and I was quite shocked, I have to admit, because like Bruce just said, it wasn't that long ago that Rupert Lowe was saying that Nigel Farage could never be Prime Minister. And now we've got an about turn. Now, I'm very happy with that. I'm a person that likes to kind of straddle both sides a little bit. Now, I believe reform is probably the best vehicle that we have to win the next election, but I also understand that you have to take the political landscape as we see it. Now, the political landscape as we see it includes restore, whether we like it or not. And let's just say Nigel would come out today with a harsh rejection to say, you know, this is utterly ludicrous, insulted restore voters. He could have handled this a lot worse than he did. I was actually pleasantly surprised with Nigel Farage's response. I've seen some people say it's a bit weak and it's a bit, but I think it kind of needed to be, because what I didn't want to see above all else was Nigel to come out of the blocks, insult restore voters, insult this potential public olive branch, but he's dealt with it, I think, with an element of restraint and an element of respect, which is what I like to see.
Calling for an end to personal grievances, Lowe extended what he framed as an olive branch, arguing that failure to cooperate would guarantee the continuation of a left-leaning government. He urged Farage to put past rivalries aside for what he described as the broader national interest. However, this proposal came with stringent conditions attached to it. Lowe outlined 5 uncompromising demands, including a national referendum on reinstating the death penalty, a total ban on specific religious face coverings, immediate mass deportation procedures, and a strict bar on former Conservative cabinet ministers holding positions in any future joint administration. That final requirement presents a massive strategic dilemma for Nigel Farage. Over recent months, Reform UK has actively welcomed high-profile defectors and former Conservative figures into its ranks to build credibility as a government in waiting. Accepting Lowe's terms would mean turning his back on key party figures and throwing his broader electoral strategy into total chaos. Yet, ignoring Restore Britain entirely carries its own set of dangerous risks. Recent polling indicates Reform UK hovering around 25%, down from earlier highs, while Restore Britain sits between 4 and 5%. In Britain's first-past-the-post electoral system, 4 or 5% extracted from a main party in targeted constituencies is more than enough to flip dozens of seats back to Labour or the Liberal Democrats. The public response from both camps over the past several days highlights just how fragile this potential alliance really is. Nigel Farage initially stated at a press conference that he remained open-minded and had reached out privately to Rupert Lowe to hold preliminary discussions. Almost immediately, Lowe publicly disputed that narrative on social media, alleging that no real substantive call had occurred, and sharing a message from Farage that simply read, "We'll call later." This exchange quickly devolved into public accusations of bad faith, revealing the deep level of personal mistrust that remains between the two politicians following Lowe's departure from Reform UK last year. Behind the media manoeuvring lies a fundamental ideological debate about the future direction of populist politics in Britain. Nigel Farage is attempting to walk a delicate tightrope. To win a parliamentary majority, Reform UK needs to attract traditional working-class voters alongside disillusioned middle-class Conservatives who expect a certain degree of mainstream parliamentary professionalism. On the other hand, Rupert Lowe and Restore Britain cater to a more uncompromising, radical strain of national conservatism that views compromise as a betrayal of core principles. If Farage aligns too closely with Lowe, he risks alienating moderate centre-right voters. If he rejects him completely, he risks losing vital activist energy and splitting the right-wing vote in marginal seats across the country. Senior figures within Reform UK have already voiced scepticism regarding any formal coalition. Spokespeople for the party have pointed out that historical precedents in British governance show coalition arrangements often produce compromise, delay, and voter disappointment. They maintain that the most effective route to radical reform is securing an outright majority under a single-party banner. According to their calculation, the next general election will ultimately narrow down to a stark direct choice between Labour and Reform UK, rendering smaller political factions obsolete as voters naturally gravitate toward the largest challenger. However, political analysts and polling experts view the situation through a much more cautious lens. Data suggests that if the right-leaning electorate remains split among the Conservatives, Reform UK and Restore Britain, the electoral mathematics heavily favour the incumbent government. A divided opponent allows a governing party to retain seats with significantly lower vote shares across numerous competitive constituencies. The pressure from grassroots supporters on both Farage and Lowe to find common ground is therefore immense, with many voters urging both leaders to put country before personal ambition. Take a brief breath, process these rapid developments, and stay fully informed as this complex story continues to unfold day by day. If you appreciate this clear-sighted, mature breakdown of British political manoeuvring, please consider hitting the subscribe button right now. Your subscription provides the direct support needed for Britain Underneath to bring you uninterrupted, high-quality political analysis.
As both parties head toward their upcoming autumn conferences, the question of unity will dominate every private meeting and public broadcast. Rupert Lowe's strategic move has effectively placed the ball in Farage's court. By offering an alliance on strict terms, Lowe has shielded himself from accusations of being a political spoiler, while forcing Reform UK to publicly defend its strategic choices. If Farage accepts talks, he risks prolonged internal disputes and media scrutiny over policy compromises. If he refuses, he gives Restore Britain a powerful narrative to rally disappointed voters who believe Reform UK is becoming too much like the traditional political establishment.
Furthermore, the Conservative Party watches this feud with intense interest. A prolonged war of attrition between Reform UK and Restore Britain gives the Tories a chance to stabilise their own polling numbers and present themselves once again as the only credible, unified alternative on the right side of the political spectrum. Every percentage point lost in the crossfire between Farage and Lowe provides a lifeline to a Conservative leadership trying desperately to rebuild its credibility with the British electorate. The next few months will determine whether the British right can forge a pragmatic working relationship or whether personal rivalries will permanently divide the vote. What is clear right now is that the polite conventions of Westminster politics have been thoroughly swept aside in favour of a raw, unpredictable battle for dominance. Nigel Farage faces one of the most consequential decisions of his political career, and the outcome will reverberate through British politics for years to come. Thank you for spending your valuable time with us today on Britain Underneath. We encourage you to subscribe to the channel right away so you never miss our sharp, timely updates on the events shaping our country. Return back to watch our upcoming videos as we continue to track every major power shift in British politics. Stay informed, stay critical, and we look forward to seeing you in the very next video.